My guest today is running for governor's council, and he's very nice, very accomplished gentleman, and I'm excited to talk to him and find out more about him and his campaign. Frank Crimmins, welcome back to normal.
Thank you. Thanks for having me tonight.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Okay, you have decided to run for the governor's council of District 2 in Massachusetts. For those, I know this is an important position, and we're going to get into that in the show. We're going to discuss it, but explain to the audience who may have no idea what the governor's council is in Massachusetts.
The Governor's Council is an 8-member body that was put in the Massachusetts Constitution of 1780, drafted by John Adams, among others. It's a very important body to make sure that the colonial governor at the time would not act like a king, because the colonists had just come from that type of environment.
Right.
And so this is the checks and balances on the elected governor. This 8-person body in the Constitution, then called the Executive Council, then morphed into the Governor's Council, is that body that has powers of checks and balances on the governor, and does it to this day. It's the most important political body that people in the state absolutely know nothing about.
Okay. I agree with you. They know nothing about it, but it's important. That's why you're on the show, so that they know about it. And we give them some of the reasons why it's important that you're running and that they vote for you down in District 2, which there's a lot of towns in District 2. I'm not going to read them off because the audience will go to sleep, but it's more South Shore Cape direction, right? So let's get into where is District 2? Just if you can maybe give it a region. Is it a lot of the Cape or some of the Cape?
No, actually, most of the Cape's in District 1, but
Okay.
the District 2 is a great example of a gerrymandered district.
Okay.
And those 37 communities on the easterly side go from Braintree to the north to Attleboro to the south.
Okay.
There's an underbelly in the south shore of Boston, in the south shore suburban towns. Then it goes up to Framingham, Ashland to the northwest,
Okay. All right.
down to Bellingham, Milford to the southwest. It is comprised, like every governor's council district, of 5 state senate districts.
Okay. All right. And what is, for the audience again, what is, you said it's a checks and balance. How does the governor's council check and provide balance to the executive and the legislature?
We are a nation of laws. The Massachusetts Constitution of 1780 preceded the U.S. Constitution. And in that document, that some would say was the basis for the U.S. Constitution, people in the Commonwealth of Virginia might differ, but that document laid out 3 branches of government, and there were checks and balances on each branch, and the checks and balances, for the most part, for the executive branch, is the governor's council. And those duties include being the group of 8 that gives advice and consent to the governor's nominees for judicial appointments, whether it's judges or clerks. We're a nation of laws. Most laws and most court things are in the state courts as opposed to the federal courts.
Right.
So that's an enormous power that the elected governor has, and the governor's council has to give advice and consent. So when a U.S. president has to nominate somebody to be on the United States Supreme Court,
Right.
they have a confirmation hearing before the U.S. Senate.
Right.
In Massachusetts, that hearing goes to the governor's council. A lot of states will have a confirmation hearing go to their state senate. But in this state, again, it goes before the 8 members of the governor's council. And if a nominee does not get a majority vote before that council, he or she does not sit and earn their commission on the bench. So it's an enormous power. That's one of the great powers that is given to this body. The second thing is, it is the backstop for public safety. The governor's council is the body where parole hearings that go to commutations, the last step for a commutation of pardon goes to the governor's council.
Really?
The governor's council, the governor appoints 7 members of the parole board that also act as the board of pardons in the process. That 7-member parole board, if they have a recommendation for a commutation or a pardon, that goes to the governor's council. That final vote goes to the governor's council.
Okay. All right. So commuting a sentence, or
Pardon.
or full pardon by the governor, which doesn't happen too often, right? I guess a commutation and a pardon probably don't happen too often.
Correct, because the governor has the power of executive clemency, and that is basically 2 parts. There's the pardon part for people that generally have served a sentence, and for some reason they need a pardon to clear up that record, to go on with their life or to participate in certain activities. And then there's the commutation of a sentence that shortens a sentence, other than the ones that are, for example, lifers, and then the lifers have a special thing. But that commutation in pardon power, that goes before the governor's council.
Okay.
And the people that make those, that hear those type of things in different capacities, those 7 people that the governor nominates, they go before the governor's council. They have staggered 5-year terms. Whoever gets elected in District 2, like the other members of the governor's council, could vote on up to 4 different members of the parole board. That's a huge part of public safety. That's the backstop to public safety. You know, if someone says, how's it affect me? It affects who's going to be on your street. It affects your neighborhood. It affects what type of person, and you have to know what type of people they are that are being nominated, and it's important who's on that governor's council.
So you mentioned 2 things, and one, I think I learned something just now. I knew that the governor's council appointed the state judges, right?
Yes.
Okay, but I didn't know that they also appoint members of the parole board. Is that what? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So all right. So there's quite a bit of power there, and we've had some news stories recently about parolees. I'll show some news in a bit. Want to get talk to you a little bit more before I do that. But okay, so there's 8-member body. Maybe you don't know this, and I didn't know how many people were on the governor's council. But what if it's a 4-4 tie? It needs to be 5-3 or greater to approve a judge. Is that then they made that intentionally?
Great question. If there's 8 members that are tied, deadlocked at 4-4, the lieutenant governor breaks the tie.
No kidding.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So nominated by the governor, but tiebreaker goes to the lieutenant governor.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. So I want to get into. I've read a bit about your background, but I want to ask you why are you running for governor's council for the most important body that in the state that nobody knows about? Talk about your background. What brought you to this decision? Why are you deciding to run now?
I've been involved in public service my whole life. I believe in it. I believe there's a spot for everybody to participate in our government to make it better. I happen to be married. I have 4 children. I have 4 grandchildren. The environment that they're growing up in is a lot different today, and a lot of it has to do because our rule of law is under attack. And as someone who has been involved in that my whole life, I feel I can make a contribution, and I can make the best contribution on the governor's council. As a young person, I grew up in my local community where I still live. I grew up in Stoughton. I was involved in student government even in high school. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship. I went to Harvard College. I graduated there. I wanted to be a lawyer. Didn't know how I was going to afford that, so I worked days and went to law school nights. I was lucky enough to get out of Suffolk University evening division. I passed the bar exam in 81. I opened up a practice in my town in 1982. I was lucky enough to get elected to the Board of Selectmen, where I served a 3-year term there. In 85, 3 years after that, I was the elected moderator. I served in that capacity. I got involved in my town committee, My father had been involved in town, so it was a natural thing for me, like my 4 other siblings, to, take a page from our father and that type of thing. We did that, and I got involved early on. I opened up a practice in my town, law practice, that is. In 1992, I was fortunate enough to get appointed by Governor William Weld to be a district court judge. I served from 1992 to 2010, and
Okay.
I loved every job as.
So, quick question for you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You were appointed by Bill Weld.
Yes.
And I would assume approved under consent by the governor's council.
Yes.
Is that?
Yes.
So,
I went through
yeah.
the process. I know
Yeah.
what it's like.
All right. So
I
you have
know-
firsthand knowledge being on the other side of it as a former judge and going through that whole process and being a judge for that long. Yeah.
I know what it takes to be a good judge. I served for almost 18 years. I served with some great people. For 9 years of those 18 years, I served in the Southeast Massachusetts district courts for the most part. There are 7 trial court departments in the Commonwealth of Mass. There's a district court, there's Superior Court, there's Appeals Court, there's Land Court, Housing Court, Juvenile Court, and the Probate and Family Court. I was in the district court. For 9 years, I went to the different district court departments. Most cases you hear about go to district court.
Let's describe some of those cases. So, all right, now I have questions. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it's an education for me, and hopefully it'll be an education for the audience, and they understand the importance of why you're running in this. So, all right, 7 types of courts or like layers of courts?
7 different trial court departments.
Trial court departments.
They have different subject matter. For example, if you know somebody who unfortunately is going through a divorce, that case will go before their county probate and family court.
Okay.
If you know somebody that has a contract claim, generally in an amount in excess of $25,000, that will go to a superior court.
Okay.
If you have people you know that have housing issues, whether they're on the landlord side or on the tenant side, they might be in the housing court.
Okay.
And the legislature decides which courts are established in different areas.
Okay.
But by legislative act, they decide what subject matter goes to different trial court departments.
And so they do that, I would assume, primarily because now there's experts in that area of law for contracts or for divorce or family or land or something like that, right? So you become like those judges, and I imagine maybe the lawyers go all over the place, but the judges then become experts at that particular set of type of law. Yes? Usually? No?
Sometimes.
If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
No, in theory, you're right.
Okay.
But it's up to the governor to appoint the right type of person for that right type of court. If someone is an assistant district attorney for 20 years and there's an opening that comes up in the land court, he or she may not be the best fit.
That's what I was getting towards.
For the land
right,
court, right.
Exactly. So the background of the person coming up comes into play and how appropriate they are to the various courts that exist.
In a district court where I served, you have to have a wide band of knowledge in a lot of things, because most things you read about and see on the news go to the district court. Operating under the influence of intoxicating liquor goes to district court. Possession of controlled substances goes to the district court.
Yeah.
Restraining orders, district court. Larcenies, district court. Motor vehicle offenses, district court. Not because I say so, because the legislature says
all right,
so.
So the legislature defines all that.
That's
Okay.
right.
All right.
And we have a much bigger population now than we had, for example, after World War II. But we haven't expanded the amount of courts too much. And there's a lot of stress on the courts. Like, for example, at the turn of the, not the last century, but the century before, there were not facilities for women to be incarcerated because it was unusual that women were before the court, and now there's a huge shortage of beds and facilities for women, for example.
Yeah.
So there hasn't been a whole lot of capital improvements and expansion of the trial court related to other trial court departments to keep up with the population
Right.
in this state that exceeds
Right.
7 million people.
Yeah. So as a Republican, I'd probably say the Democrats are just they want to let them all out of jail and then keep them on the streets rather than lock them up. But
That's a big issue too.
Yeah.
You have to know what is the philosophy of the nominee, like who goes to those courts. You have to have that hearing before the governor's council is the only time the public will hear what type of philosophy the nominee put forward by the governor, what he or she thinks about things like having ICE in the courtroom taking custody of somebody or whatever.
Yeah.
I believe in the Constitution.
Yeah.
I carry it with me. Here's my thing. Everybody that holds an office, took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Whatever town they serve in, they took an oath also to uphold the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
And that's very true, because we have a problem with a lot of the leadership right now that they think they've been elected as some sovereign dictator over an independent piece of land. Like they're not. They're under U.S. jurisdiction
if you
and
wanna,
the Constitution. They're governed by the Constitution.
If you want to change the law, run for the legislature.
Right.
A judge shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
A judge shouldn't have an attitude, I know what's better for you and everybody than anybody else.
Yeah.
You're supposed to apply the facts to the law before you that has been passed on by the people that make the law and the other sources of authority in the Constitution and case law.
Well, there unfortunately, I mean, it's basically come from the left. There may be small examples of from the right, but that you have a large school of thought coming out of law schools that leave everything open to interpretation. And that starts to erode the basic meaning of law. Words mean what they mean. And as silly as it sounds, we write them down for a reason. Like, it's written down for a reason. It's written because it means what it means, and the intent of it when it was written has meaning behind it. And there's this, call it, I learned this as a kid. I remember it, the living Constitution. And I just thought, oh, the Constitution's living. And how many fifth graders learned that? Like, oh, it's the living Constitution. It wasn't until like much older, high school, maybe college, no. And Scalia said it. The Constitution is a dead document. It means what it means. It says what it says. If you want something to change, we have a process for that. It's called the legislature. And now we have really dangerous ideas of people talking packing the court, and that the Supreme Court is illegitimate. Ed Markey was saying that last year and the year before. A lot of people are saying that. Real dangerous stuff. You were right. You've said it several times now. The rule of law. The rule of law is critical. We are a nation of laws, and we need to be, and it needs to be written down and adhered to for a reason. So this is why it's a critical role you're running for, to be on the governor's council and select individuals who understand that.
You need to have a debate at the governor's council. Here's an interesting thing that happened during COVID. COVID pulled the curtain back on the governor's council, because here's what they did in a lot of elected bodies, including the governor's council. So you wouldn't have to go into work and go into the building at the State House. They decided to live stream it, and you could appear by phone.
Oh, man.
You could be home and appear at the meeting. You could be on a beach and appear at the meeting.
It just came out the other day that the Boston superintendent, maybe, of schools was sitting on the Cape doing this. Like, COVID's been over. It's 2026. It's the election of 2026. It's been 5 years since this thing ended, and they're still milking remote work for whatever it's worth, and they shouldn't be. If you got to be old school about it and go into the office face to face.
So ironically, people found out they had a chance. You can go on mass.gov, go to Governor's Council, and pick a hearing that you want to watch. You can watch it. That was never there before. No one knew what they did or didn't do.
Okay.
And the upshot of that is, first of all, I would be a lot different person than my opponent in the race in that action, because I would participate and have a hearing. There are no Republicans on the Governor's Council. They do not have too many debates. They do not have vigorous debates. They do not raise questions. So the public doesn't know what they are getting with the people before the court. The public, to have confidence in the legal system, you have to have confidence in the people that participate in the legal system. You have to make sure that you have judges and clerk-magistrates that are people of integrity, that have experience, and are the right people to do the job. If you have that vetting process in public, people can see that.
Yeah.
Like when you mention, even like going back to what people learned in school, they don't even teach U.S. history in school. You could be the valedictorian at the local high school, and for most high schools, have 1 year of U.S. history.
Yeah.
Now, we just celebrated the 250th anniversary of the Declaration. You have 180 days in a school year. You have 40-something minute periods.
Yeah.
You have 120 hours of instruction to cover 250 years.
Yeah.
So you get a headline.
Yeah. You don't dive too deep in it.
Right.
Agreed. You mentioned something. A question for you on this, and this might just. I knew about the approving judges, but what about you? You mentioned clerks.
Yes.
What role does the clerk have, and why? I mean, a clerk to me is, I'm thinking just paperwork, right? But
No, very important.
So yeah, explain that to me. I don't know why the clerks, and what do the clerks do, and why is that important?
Judges make the decisions in the courtrooms. The people that run the operation and manage the operation and manage the personnel in the building are the clerk's magistrate.
Okay.
So the position of clerk-magistrate is not only the person that runs the operation of the personnel in the court to make it work, but they have quasi-judicial powers acting as a magistrate, and they act like judges in all sorts of hearings because the Constitution says people shouldn't be charged for crimes unless there's probable cause.
Mm-hmm.
The probable cause determination is made by the clerk at a hearing.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
That's an awesome power. They have authority in both civil matters and criminal matters. And
can you give an example of like a maybe possible scenario where that, like, don't have to give like a real world example, but like
two people get in a fight.
Okay.
There's no witnesses around. There's no police officer around. Person goes down to a police station and reports, I just got in a fight. This person threw a punch at me. Police officer isn't there. So they apply for a complaint on behalf of the person who is making the complaint. That complaint application will go to the nearest district court. That will be assigned for a hearing.
Mm-hmm.
That hearing will be in front of a clerk at the district court. He or she will make the determination.
Oh, wow.
If a complaint should issue after a hearing.
Okay.
If there's a felony, they'll bring it right away,
Yeah.
and they'll go to the clerk and try to get a...
Okay, so they can say yes or no, there's probable cause to pursue this or not.
The Constitution was made that an encounter on the street doesn't get decided by the people on the street.
Yeah.
There's an independent, detached magistrate that takes the paperwork, and he or she forms the opinion that there's enough there to warrant a hearing to take place.
Frank, I'm learning a lot today. This is good.
But
I think the audience should be learning a lot too. So let's before I play a clip, I'm going to get into that in a second. You've had a long, distinguished career, right? You are involved in local politics from way back. 2026, You're here. You could go play golf and be with the grandkids, right? At this point.
Right.
What made you decide to run for governor's council this year?
Well, the same thing that compelled me to run in 2024. I saw what was out there, and it disturbed me that the governor's council did not take an active part in the process of who gets picked to hold the important positions. I've been there. I have the experience. I was a judge. I was a judge that not only served as a judge, I was the first justice or the administrative head of the Stoughton Court for 9 years. I was an acting first justice that ran the Fall River District Court for half a year before that. Not before Stoughton, but early in my career. I was on the appellate division. I had leadership roles in the court system. When I got out, I was a town manager in a community for a couple of years. I was a town administrator in another community for 4 years. Governor Baker appointed me to be the chairman of the State Ballot Law Commission in 2022. We had the Trump case when people tried to keep him off the ballot in 2024. You heard recently there's been some activity with the State Ballot Law Commission. That's important. I've been involved. I know what to do because I've been there. I have the experience. That is my contribution. I'm a lawyer. I love being a lawyer. I'm going to continue to be a lawyer. My wife and I put 4 kids through college, so we're participating in finishing up our job that way. And I have 4 grandchildren coming along, and I want those kids to have the same break that I have. My father and mother grew up, they were kids in the Depression.
Yeah.
They've now passed, but my father was a World War II guy. He was in Patton's 3rd Army, 10th Armored Division, lucky enough to make it home, had 5 kids, my 4 other siblings and I. We were fortunate. I want to give my kids and other people the chance to still achieve the American dream. Yeah. The Republican Party is the party that gives people a chance at that American dream. What's going on now is in this great state of ours, that have all these great people and attributes with these great educational facilities. We got young people that can't afford to live here because we're passing a lot of crazy type of laws. I just got my electric bill from a certain utility company a couple of days ago, and it's 1/3 higher than it was last year.
Everybody's going through that.
Right.
Yeah,
so I'm not special. I'm just saying it's I want to try to make a difference for our kids. I've been lucky.
Excellent.
I have to give back a little bit. I've been lucky. I've been very fortunate. Nobody does it on their own.
Yeah.
A lot of people have helped me. I wish to pay it forward. And this is a job that I know. I know the job. I have the experience to do the job. I've been vetted before.
Yeah.
I've had positions before. People have checked me out and all that type of stuff. And that's why I'm doing it today.
Excellent. No, I mean, very qualified, and I agree with everything you've said. No surprise there. I've been putting up on the screen your website. The website is crimmins4council.com. Go give Frank money because Frank needs advertising to get votes and get people to vote for him down in District 2. I could end the show there, but I don't, because we've been going for a little bit. But I want to get your reaction to a news clip. This was from 2 months ago. So let's take a listen here.
Boston's police commissioner is weighing in days after those shots were fired on Memorial Drive in Cambridge.
Commissioner Cox went on the record here at CBB with us today. Our Sharman Sacchetti joins us right now, and he talked about the shooting, Sharm, and the suspect's past with the law.
Ed and Maria, the commissioner told us that Tyler Brown's previous punishment didn't seem to fit the crime, adding there are questions and there should be some accountability. Thanks so much for being here. Boston Police Commissioner Michael Cox on OTR telling us it's troubling Tyler Brown didn't get a longer sentence for shooting at Boston police several years ago. Brown now accused of opening fire on Memorial Drive earlier this week, critically injuring 2 people.
doesn't seem like the sentence matches the seriousness of the offense in any way, shape, or form. And so, now the person comes out and almost does the exact same thing with a bigger gun and more bullets.
Brown has pleaded not guilty. He was still on probation for shooting at Boston police in the South End 6 years ago. A judge sentenced him to 5 to 6 years against the recommendation of the district attorney and police. Last year, the parole board granted his release.
The fact is,
So 2 months ago that happened. 2 months ago, we had an incident where a guy goes out with a rifle and starts shooting up Memorial Drive. I used to work like right there. The news clip says it. Judge gave him a light sentence. Parole board releases him from shooting at cops in 2020. Sentence of 5 to 6 years. They let him out early, light on top of the light sentence to begin with. This is why it's super critical that we get judges that understand who is dangerous in our society and who is making us less safe by the decisions they make. And there is power in the citizens of District 2 that need to understand to vote for people like yourself to undo a lot of what's going on here. But I want to get your reaction to what we just watched.
You have a lot of things involved there. On any incident where you have someone who was previously convicted, you have the following. First of all, the person in charge of the prosecution was the elected district attorney. He or she is the one that assigns a certain assistant district attorney to be the one and carry the case. If you go to a jury trial and the jury comes back guilty, then you have the sentencing. That assistant district attorney has to make the argument before the court. That particular sentence on the range of sentencing that could be was on the lighter side. But there was still, beyond that, though, you heard right at the end there, the parole board let him out.
Yeah.
Okay, the governor appoints the 7 persons on the parole board. Okay, and guess who has to approve the governor's nominations for the parole board? The governor's council.
Yeah.
That's where you have to make sure you have people on the parole board that know what the heck they're doing, so they don't make that decision to let that guy out.
Yeah.
Because even if there was some mitigating circumstances, and I haven't seen it, I just saw that clip that you just showed me. I heard about it, and I saw the same clip.
Yeah.
But I remember when I first heard it in the parole board, because I go, the antenna go up like that, because the parole board, the governor has to have people on that parole board that can do the job. That in those recommendations by the governor, they go to the governor's council.
Right.
The governor's council is the stopgap for public safety in the system. The final backstop for public safety is the governor's council. That's why it was put there. Yeah. So if you have people that are a little too prone to say, well, let's give this guy his 17th chance, that type of thing. There are people there to say, no, we're not voting for that. The parole board, 7 members have to have a majority vote. Yeah. So there was a majority vote.
Well, this is something that I truly don't understand it, not intellectually, but sort of on a philosophical level. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I don't break stuff. I don't break into homes. I don't commit crimes. Neither do, call it 95, probably a little more than 95% of the population. Most people are law-abiding, good citizens of the country and the Commonwealth. And about 5% really screw it up. And when you don't put those 5% in jail, they're going to keep committing crimes. And there is just this idea that if you go easy on it and they'll learn their lesson. This guy shot at cops 6 years ago as a full-grown, not a teenager when they were 15 and running with the bad crowd and all that kind of stuff. Fully grown man shooting at cops 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And they're just like, okay, well, give him a pass. No, like people like that need to be locked up. They need to be locked up. They need to be locked up for good, or as long as the sentencing guidelines permit for the crime that they committed. And we need people that think that way, that are judges, that are on the parole board, all of those things. Sometimes, like, maybe there's rare circumstances where people improve, but this is just, it's gone way beyond reason. And we need to just get back to some semblance of normality and sanity with all of this stuff. So, Frank, CrimminsForCounsel.com. I'm going to put that up. Well, I've been putting it up on the screen for the audience. They can see it the whole time or many times throughout the show. I'm going to put up my little plug here. It's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Good luck in the race in November.
Thank you.
We need people like yourself to be on the Governor's Council to approve judges that understand what the law is supposed to mean and don't try to reinterpret it and believe in the rule of law, because it is unfortunately lacking in too many corners of our society. So with that, I'm going to end the show. I probably should have played the clip earlier in the show because it was, and then had you wrap up. You had a great reason for why you're running, and I really appreciate you putting your name on the ballot and doing that, because we need more people like yourself to step up and do it.
Thank you.
You're
Great
welcome.
to be here.
All right.
Thanks.
And with that, we'll end the show. So talk to you soon. Bye-bye.